Welcome to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha, where you can hear your favorite performers talk about how they got started, their careers, and everything in between. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Spotify at Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha, and on my main Broadway account at Broadway_Corner on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome back to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha. I am so happy you are here, and today is the start of the very first Here Lies Love podcast, which is so exciting. And I'm talking to someone who wore one of the best barongs on opening night, now covers both Marcos and Aquino, and has the cutest puppy in the world. It is Roy Flores.
Hello. Hey
Roy.
everybody, how's it going?
Yeah, so happy to have you here. And for just some background on who Roy is, Roy Flores is a New York-based actor, singer, songwriter, and vlogger, which I didn't know until, looking you up on,
Oh
on
yeah.
Instagram and everything. And he was born in the Philippines and spent his childhood on a small island. He spent his teenage years in San Diego, California, and is now keeping up with the busy crowds on the island of Manhattan. Roy made his Broadway debut in Here Lies Love as a part of the ensemble and covers Ferdinand, Marcos, and Ninoy Aquino. Some of his credits include the national touring production of Anything Goes and some regional productions such as Godspell as Jesus, West Side Story as Chino, South Pacific, The King and I, and The Producers. He's also a proud artist who codes, and when he's not performing, Roy keeps very busy as a software engineer, which in itself is insane too. So, hi Roy, it's so nice to see you again. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. It's our day off. We've had a wild week last week, so it's nice to, have a day off. And I'm honored and it's a pleasure to be here
Yes,
and
thank you
talk
so
all
much.
things Here Lies Love.
Yes, yes. No, I mean, thank you so much again for being here on your day off.
Yeah,
It
of
is
course.
insane. I know it's like Broadway schedules can be tough, especially with an energetic show like Here Lies Love, where it's 90
Yeah.
minutes of pure energy. And so, again, just so happy to have you here. And just to get started, I want to talk about, like, for you, what is your background? Where did you grow up, go to school, and when did you discover theater, performing, or maybe even being a software engineer? When did that start too?
Oh yeah, okay. So let's start from the beginning. So I was born in the Philippines, right? As you mentioned. I moved to San Diego in my mid-teens. And like we spoke English in the Philippines. So, like the educational system is was established by the Americans. So a lot of our classes were taught in English. So my English was pretty good. But then again, like you move into a new place and you move into a new high school, you kind of struggle to find people to hang out with, to get to know people. And I mean, as Filipino, I did a lot of like singing and dancing, growing up. So when I found out about the drama club, I decided to join it, and then that kind of got me into a lot more theater and exposed to it. And I actually did a lot of like productions in high school. My first musical was Guys and Dolls.
Mm, that's a
Um, yeah, and it was something that like I felt like I excelled in, and it brought me a lot of joy, and I got to meet a lot of other students and developed a lot of good friendships through that. But when looking at colleges and like what I want to do in life, I didn't initially consider going to get like a musical theater degree or a theater degree, right?
Mhm.
Because at that point, we're aware of Leia Salonga, she's been a
Yeah.
trailblazer for a lot of Filipinos. But looking at other shows, it's like I felt like I didn't see myself. And even the shows that that I got to do in high school, it's always like I couldn't really relate to the material because it didn't represent my upbringing. It didn't represent who I was. Granted,
Mhm.
as a high school student, like how much life do you really have,
Yeah.
to actually relate to these like Broadway shows, right?
Mhm.
So I initially went and tried to go to school for accounting,
Mm.
and I still did minor in theater. No, I didn't minor in theater. I did a minor in comp sci, but I had to take a lot of theater classes as part of my electives.
I see.
And yeah, and then while I was in that, like every time I did shows, it kind of just like still the fire was there.
Mhm.
So then I don't know if they still exist. I used to have these magazines called Dramatics magazines.
I don't
it, like
I
if
don't know.
you're like in the theater program, like maybe it was like maybe they don't exist anymore, but it was like
I have to look it up again.
yeah, like
Yeah.
and I think there was like a organization being a thespian, like they have like region like membership as well. So I
Oh
think that
yeah,
was part of our
the Lesbian Society, I think.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
I
was a part
did
of
that.
that. Yeah, and I think that Dramatics magazine was like part of the thing that we got like every month because of our membership. And I remember seeing a lot of ads for schools, and I stumbled upon an ad for the American Musical and Dramatic Academy here in New York.
Mhm.
And this was already when I was just like cleaning up some of my high school stuff, and I saw that magazine again. This was already like second year in college, I believe. And that kind of like sparked the desire to get back to theater.
Mhm.
And a friend of mine actually encouraged me to apply to AMDA. And I did the essay, did the auditions, got all the letters of recommendation, and I managed to get in, and they offered me a good scholarship. And I've always wanted to move to New York, like since I was a child. And there it was, like an opportunity presented to me to move to New York City. And the school was pretty much like financing was pretty covered. So I was like, you know what? I wanna go move to New York.
Yeah.
And my mom wasn't 100% supportive at that time because she was like, why would you drop out of like trying to pursue an accounting degree and then and start all over again in a different path? I was like, but like I felt like my heart wanted to be here in New York. So yeah, so I ended up in New York. The program at AMDA at that point was only 2 years. They do have a BA now, BFA now as well.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but when I was there, when I finished there, it was only a 2 year program. And I was lucky enough that like I got started working at regional theaters immediately after graduating from AMDA. And then, it like that started the long pursuit for a Broadway career, right? Um, but then, like for people who look like us, it's a little hard.
Yeah, a lot.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because there are so many talented people who look like us, and and there are very limited roles. So then kind of like, like the competition's fierce. So, but like I'm friends with a lot of like people who've had great Broadway careers. Um, so and then so yeah, so I worked a lot of like the regional gigs. I did a national tour. I did a couple of like small little film and TV stuff. But then when the pandemic hit, when everything shut down and all the performing arts just pretty much kind of just like disappeared, and it's like I'm pretty sure I wasn't the only one. We're like some of us were kind of like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine who God, she's done like maybe 8 Broadway shows. Catherine Ricafort.
Oh,
Um,
yes, yeah.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
I saw her in like SpongeBob, I believe.
yeah. She was
Yeah.
in SpongeBob. Was that the last thing that she did, or did she do? I know she did Saigon as well, the revival.
She's done a lot,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, she's done a lot. I think SpongeBob might have been her last one, but she was already in the process of switching careers from a performing career into like the tech world.
Mm,
And
hmm.
her and her husband started a kind of like it started more kind of like as a support group for all the performers, right? Because like Broadway goes down, all the performing arts industry in the country shut down, so there's no work. We're all like in our apartments, like isolating or on a lockdown. So they started this little weekly meetups for artists who are kind of like considering a career in tech as a side thing, So they kind of like set up this like meetings where we kind of like share resources. And I was already familiar with a lot of like HTML and CSS because like I create my own websites and I tinkered
Yeah,
with a
yeah.
lot of like other websites that I was involved in. Um, so it kind of like brought back that like passion for it again. And then so I decided to actually like go in and into that during the lockdown. I went to a boot camp where it was literally like I spent my Monday to Saturday 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. for the regular classes online. And then I'd spend right after that, I would spend another 4 hours coding. So it's pretty much like coding like from 9 a.m. to about 11 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Monday to Saturday.
Oh my
I
god.
gave myself like I was gracious to myself. I was like, you know what, Sunday, you don't have to be in front of your computer. You don't have to code. So that was like my day off.
Yeah.
But that was like for 16 weeks of doing that, just like coding every day,
Yeah. Well, that's
like for
intense.
that amount of time. Yeah, and then like and also like the boot camp that I went to, like they also prepared us to for like the interview process, kind of like because interviews for regular jobs is kind of like just like an audition.
Yeah, yeah.
So like I already had an experience kind of like talking about myself and kind of just like selling myself. So but they also like helped us to kind of like help us translate some of our skills that we already have as performers, how that would translate into the like an office like
Mhm.
corporate tech world, right? So
Yeah.
that was really helpful. I was one of the lucky ones who was able to, by the time New York City reopened back up, I was already working my first software engineering job.
Mm.
It was fully remote because the company was based in Chicago. So it allowed me to like work on that like on my regular hours. And oh, and the nice thing about that job too, it was a 4-day work week.
Ah.
And they knew that I was coming from like a performing background. So whenever I have to go in for an audition for like a quick like on camera audition, like as long as I give them a heads up, they were fine with it, and I can just make up the hours like at the end, like later on in the day.
Mhm.
So that was very helpful.
Yeah.
I believe I was working with them when I booked my first Netflix thing for I had a little scene in Inventing Anna. I had one
Oh.
line, but I was already working as a software engineer when I booked that gig. So yeah, so like and I talked to my agent, like I told him like this is what I do now. I feel like with my experience in theater, it would have to take a certain contract and a certain show for me to completely abandon my software engineering job.
Mhm.
Um, and in a sense, it gave me some sort of kind of like a lot more no, I would say power as to like what I want to do in life, in
More
my
freedom
career.
too, more freedom.
Right, yeah. Because like before I became a software engineer, it was like any job that comes my way, I would do it. Like if I had to put on a fake Chinese accent, I will do it. Like even
Mm.
though I'm Filipino, you know, like anything goes. I had
Yeah.
to play a Chinese character because those were like the opportunities were very limited
Yeah.
for us. But
Very.
then and it's also like I need to pay my bills, and so I'll take any job. And then when I became a software engineer, it was more kind of like, you know what, that material doesn't really help me
Mhm.
emotionally and mentally like grow, and like it doesn't help me benefit me as a person. It doesn't benefit my people, like. And if it's like a character that it's almost kind of like adding on to the stereotypes of Asians or Asian Americans, I'm just like, nah, I'll pass,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you're like, it won't do me any good. It won't do my people any good. So what's the point of me doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I felt like I had a stronger voice, like because of the fact that like I don't have to like just do anything to make money.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so like I was already working at my company when I heard that Here Lies Love was coming to Broadway. And I saw Here Lies Love when it was at the Public Theater.
Oh, you did. Yeah, yeah.
So
That here.
you were probably still in elementary school.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel, when was that? 2014, 2015, around that time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I believe I was on tour for Anything Goes at that time. We had a break, and I went to see it because had several friends in it. I saw JG. She
Oh,
was on as
Daisy. Yeah.
Imelda when went to see it. Um, and it was just like it just had this effect on me. Like it's the story of my people. It's people who look like me getting to tell this story. They are singing the way we sound, and they're talking the way we sound, like without having to put on any fake accent.
Mhm.
And it was just like, I just had just such like a visceral response to it. And it was like, oh my God, I want to be in this, you know? Um, but logistics just didn't like pan out properly. So I missed out on it. And then so that's why like when I heard that it was going to be moved to Broadway, I immediately like messaged my agent. I was like, hey, I know we've talked about like I probably won't do a lot more musical theater or theater in general. Because we kind of like talked about like focusing more on film and TV stuff. So I told him, I was like, but Here Lies Love is coming. From what I heard, Here Lies Love is coming to Broadway, and I'm assuming Tara Rubin is still casting it. So can you just like shoot her a message, tell her that I'm
Yeah,
still here?
definitely.
Yeah, so I heard about it December, and then I didn't get my first appointment until first week of February, I believe.
Hmm.
So I went in person. Um, it was just casting and our now music director, Jay Connor. And then I believe I didn't hear from them for 2 weeks. So I was like, I felt good about what I did and I left it all on the table. And if this is the end, this is the end. And
Yeah.
then 2 weeks later, they want me back. And I was pretty much like back in the room with the creatives and some producers as well, like Monday to Friday. Yeah. So I was like back every single day like that week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then I think I believe like a week later, I pretty much got the info that I was gonna be in it. So now here we are. We've been open officially
Yay!
for for two weeks now. Yeah, officially. But we've had shows since June. So yeah.
Yeah, we're all caught up now to like just current events,
Yes.
you know, all about auditioning and oh my gosh, like a whole, going back, that's insane.
Yeah.
But and going back to what you were talking about with being a software engineer is I think that's what a lot of actors think about is like some people are like you're not committed if you don't only do theater, or you only do performing. But for a lot of people, they do need to have like a separate career
Right.
just to sustain that if to keep it healthy in terms of if you want to just pursue
Right.
the art that you want to instead of trying to only
Just
fit everything else and having those opportunities and like we said freedom to again to be the artist that you actually want to be instead
right.
of just trying to
And I
do
mean, there's
anything.
something commendable about like having like this like very zeroed in on your path as a performer,
Mhm.
right? And only
Yeah.
wanting to do that. And that's admirable. And if you have the means to do that, that's fantastic. But the reality of the situation is that we're not going to be working all the time. I mean, we wish that we could all be one of those lucky ones who can just like jump from one show to another, especially for us. We have an added kind of thing where like the way we look, we can't just be put on any show that's on
Yeah.
Broadway right now, right? And it's also look, you also have to consider like the amount of competition and like somebody might be slightly a lot more fitted for that role that you're going in for. So the reality of the situation is like you're not going to be working for your entire career. There will be moments where you're not going to be working. So it's nice to have like a healthy side thing that still gives you fulfillment, right? Like because when before I became a software engineer, I did a lot of like waiting tables and bartending and nothing wrong with the job, right? It's an honest living, and actually like I got to meet a lot of like great people in New York as well, like doing that. But there's a certain part of me that was kind of like dying like little by little,
Mm,
like trying to do the survival job. And by the time I get an audition, like I'm so exhausted that I can't even like present my 100% full
yeah.
like potential or like ability, right? So yeah, after years of doing that in between shows, like I had to like figure out something else that won't like kill my drive and my artistry, right? um and I think like that short time in the pandemic, I mean relatively short, but like it was a long period of time, um that kind of gave me an opportunity to kind of just like flip the switch and kind of like reset like
Hmm.
my way of making money to pay my bills while not performing.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'm like really grateful that I was able to do that for the time that like we were all in lockdown. So instead of me like doing all the trends of like the baking trends and all what other trends were there like during the lockdown, I devoted my time into just, learning how to code and learning how to create apps. And honestly, besides, like doing this Broadway show right now, I think that is definitely one of the most proudest, most proudest. I'm like, go double redundant. One of the proudest things I've done in my adult life. So
Yeah.
yeah, because
Oh, that's amazing. I love that, you found a way to create balance in your own life. Because that's the reality for most actors is you can't be acting all the time. You can't be
right,
performing
yeah,
constantly. You'll constantly have to find something else to do because
yeah,
there are so many limitations on what you can do at a given time and as a given, like, depending on who you are as a person, what you look like, what
right,
you sound like, that in itself is a whole other thing that
yeah. There's a lot of
also
factors.
does that. Yeah, there's a ton of factors that make you have to really make yourself flexible, make yourself doing something else, whether that be software engineering or finding a whole other thing. I mean, there's so many opportunities and so many different paths that you can really
Right,
take as a
yeah,
performer where, it gives you a little bit more freedom to do exactly what you love.
yeah. Because you know what it is, like you are an artist no matter what. Like whatever you end up like doing for the moment, you as an artist, it's there. It's always there.
Yeah.
It's just because you like, even people who are currently not like in theater or not doing shows on stage or not currently in films and TV and stuff, like even people who just do like theater for fun, like, or people who sing at church, like there's still artistry in that, and I feel like what it is like if what you're doing brings you joy,
Hmm.
then that's all that matters. It doesn't matter at what level it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that makes
So
complete sense. Yeah, I totally agree.
yeah,
And, now going to Here Lies Love, I mean, that's giant, all Filipino cast. You have Lea
yeah,
Salonga in the cast, who is like the inspiration to not just Filipino, but like all Asian people, really,
yes,
in the arts, just kind of that person that changed everyone's life with her
yeah.
voice and just who she is as a performer. And, for you, you grew up in the Philippines. You moved here to San Diego when you were a teenager. And so, like, how does that really, like, what was that like, first of all, moving from the Philippines to the US? And then how does that influence your performance in Here Lies Love?
Well, I mean, like it was like a huge change, right? Because I came from an island in the Philippines where the town only had access to electricity from 6 p.m. to midnight. I mean,
Mm.
my family had generators, so like we were a little bit more privileged in a sense.
Mm.
Um, but I remember like so we would only get like access to television as well, like whenever the power is on, because all the yeah, so I mean I remember like seeing Leia on TV, and as well G Tonji, she's part of our
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
she's involved with Here Lies Love as well, and she was like she was a singer actress in the Philippines when I was growing up, and yeah, and then to finally like move to the States where it's like it's a huge adjustment, and as I mentioned earlier, like this whole new world where I needed to belong to something kind of like drew me into doing theater, right?
Mm.
And now I get to still do that, so it's just like amazing. And my application essay to AMDA, I actually I still vaguely remember saying like, oh, and someday I would love to perform on the same stage as Leia Salonga. And
Oh,
then now here we are. I haven't
you
told
manifested it.
yeah, I haven't told Leia about that, but like, but a lot of us like grew up like listening to her voice, like in Aladdin and in Milan. So, so yes, it's like it's wild to be able to be like in a show with
Mhm.
her and just like to hang out with her like when we're not on stage, like just having conversations with her. Like I am still pinching myself, really.
Yeah.
um yeah, so it's been wild, and it's been such an honor and such a pleasure working with her. Um Yeah, honestly, like we've been open for like what, 2 weeks now, and I still haven't fully processed what this truly means,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
finally getting here.
Hmm.
But I am trying to enjoy every single day.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
the best I can do right now.
Just try to take it all in moment by moment.
Yeah, because the rest of the cast they don't have to come into rehearsals anymore unless we necessarily have to.
Mhm.
But for some of us who are understudying some of the roles, like we still have 2 days of
Oh
rehearsal
yeah, yeah.
every week. So our schedule hasn't really changed that much yet for us, like the understudies. Um, so it's still been kind of like a packed schedule,
Yeah.
but it's nice to finally be open and have all the critics come in and see what they think. And it seemed like we were, they
Received
like,
very
well,
well, yeah.
yeah, it was received very well.
Yeah.
So we're really hoping we get to do this for quite some time.
Yeah, I'm hoping
um
too, so I can come back again. Uh,
yes, yes.
but
um
there are so many great musical numbers in this show. I mean, it's pretty much sung through completely.
mhm,
But for you, in your current track that you are, and for maybe your understudy tracks, if you've gotten to try out some stuff, like, do you have
yeah.
a favorite number to perform or a favorite costume to wear?
Um, one of my favorite cousins to wear, because like on my in my ensemble track, I don't get to be a part of like all the crazy costumes during dancing, the Studio 54 scene.
Uh-huh.
But a little secret, Jose's track gets to do it.
Uh-huh.
And so he wears like this red matador kind of
Yeah, yeah,
like
I know what you're talking about.
outfit. And I think that's actually one of my favorite ones
I know
in
it's very
terms of
fun.
costumes.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of choreography, I definitely, one of my top is definitely Solano Avenue, the like tango
Mhm.
thing with the group. I love that. And in terms of music, I don't know if it's because like, Filipinos who like melodramatic stuff. Um, 837 is like one of my favorites,
Mhm.
because it's just this like heart-wrenching moment between Ninoy, his son, and like Corey on the very last time that they see each other, so it's like the amount of emotion in that song, just like it just like I just can just like feel it, like, and that's why it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I know I can't because you haven't gone on for either of your tracks yet,
Not
so
yet. Yeah,
I'm very
I've
excited
had
to
a
see that. Yeah, for everyone to see.
Oh yeah, and speaking of the Nino track, I got invited to be a part of a cabaret at Green Room 42
Oh yeah, I saw your
on
picture
in
of it.
August, like August 21st. And so like the cabaret features standbys and understudies on Broadway.
Mhm.
So JG Makapuga, who's our Imelda alternate, she will also be there. So the two of us will be representing Here Lies Love.
Yay!
And I have chosen to sing a song by Ninoy.
Hmm.
So yeah, and also I just found out, a friend, after I posted that thing on my Insta story, a friend told me that August 21st is Ninoy Aquino Day, at least in the
Oh.
Philippines,
Uh-huh.
because that was when he got shot.
Mm.
So it's a bit of a, yeah, it's like it's crazy, yeah,
Yeah.
that I get to sing that song on that day.
Mm.
So yeah, it'll be an
Definitely
honor.
honor him. Yeah, honor him
Yeah,
and his
yeah, yeah,
legacy through the show
yeah,
because
yeah,
he is such a
yeah.
big part of it.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, I mean, can you talk about like for your track or for your other tracks, like what the backstage traffic is like? Because
Oh my
it
God.
seems like you're just watching, you see people come up and you're like, wait, you were just
Yes.
there over here, and then it's like, what is even going on? So
Honestly,
like
I wish I could wear a Fitbit um during the show,
just to see how much
because
you like how much
yeah, it's like because all of us were just like running around everywhere. And because like in a regular show, like you are confined to the space of the stage, right? Like for us, like there's a point when I even have to run all the way to the very back row of the mezzanine.
Mm.
Um, let me see. I'm trying to count. So I start in the catwalk in the front of the mezzanine, and then I have to do another thing in the plat. I think I'm up there 4 times
Oh
during
my,
the show.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that's a lot of stairs.
Yes. No, oh my gosh. No, Aaron, who also covers both, like you guys
Yes,
both
yes.
cover, he
Yeah,
was showing me like all the places where he goes to run up to the
yeah,
mezzanine. I'm like, that
yeah,
is
yeah.
insane. And I mean, I couldn't
It
imagine if you were just like watching the backstage area because there's like so much going on, so many costume changes,
yeah.
so much activity happening. I'm like, that in
Yeah,
itself is like probably more exciting than what the show
yeah, there's
is.
definitely a lot of traffic backstage. That's why like we try to make sure that audiences are not in like any pathways for us, especially for like the seating on the gallery or
Yeah.
like the people on the floor. We're trying to like our ushers and our wranglers have been very good about this. We're trying to keep audiences from actually like leaving the areas that they're supposed to be at, because like at any given point we could be running around and it could be dangerous for them, it could be dangerous for us. Yeah, because there's a lot of traffic backstage.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean learning that too with I know a lot of times people will like trail different actors
Right.
are learning
Hmm.
their understudy roles, and so it's
Yeah.
like to keep that all in your brain of like, especially with this
Yeah.
show, it's a little more compli it's a bit more complicated than anything
Yeah, like I mean, like
on Broadway.
yeah, for me, like I've started my rehearsals for my Aquino track. I've been kind of just like compartmentalizing my regular track, the Marcos track, and the Aquino track, and even like in my notebook, at least like my regular ensemble track, because we kind of like learned it all together, like from the
Mhm,
beginning until like we opened, when we officially opened, because there's been like changes since our first preview all the way to like for our opening night.
mhm.
Um, I did all my notes on the script and the score itself, but for me to separate like my way of like remembering things for Marcos and Aquino, I actually had a different notebook. And so for Marcos, I started from the front, going to the
Uh,
back, and then like for Aquino, I'm starting the
yeah,
show
yeah.
from the back, and then yeah. So just to make sure that like I have all
Oh my
my
God.
information right, because like no, we're not gonna be doing, Aaron and I are not gonna be playing Marcos or Aquino all the time, so it's like, and at any given point like it could be mid-show that we might have to step in. We have to just kind of just like quickly remember that track, because it's different, like if you're doing it every show, like it's in your body, but then if you don't get to do it like all the time, you kind of just have to find a way for you to be able like to quickly access that information, and to
Mhm.
make sure that like you remember where he's supposed to exit, where the quick change needs to happen, and even the quick change, right? You need to remember what goes on, like what goes off first and what goes on first.
Yeah.
All
So,
right.
yeah, talking again about all of your crazy quick changes, because I don't think people realize too, like with Aquino, he's a part of the ensemble for a lot of numbers, or with
Mm-hmm.
Marcos, he's going from the bathing suit into a suit. Like, what,
Yeah.
what has it been like trying to prepare mentally for that? I don't know if you guys have been using the costumes like in rehearsal, just because there is so much going on. What is,
Well, luckily, like like we have that tech process where we get to tackle all of that. Um, when we moved to the theater, when we were teching the show, we also got our dressers at that point, and that's when we actually didn't have like a I feel like, from what I remember, I feel like we started getting to wear the costumes once we got to the theater, because like all the quick changes are wild for the show. Like I think one of my quickest one is maybe like 10
oh
seconds.
my gosh.
Yeah. Granted, it's only just putting on a helmet and a jacket, and then like going back in immediately. Um, yeah, like and also like if you notice, like Imelda's quick changes are pretty wild as well,
Yeah,
and she barely gets to leave the stage.
I know.
I had a friend who went to see it, and he was just so blown away. He was like, I don't even know how that was possible. Like every single song, she like she has a different outfit and she barely leaves the stage. And then also, if you notice, her hair also like
Yeah,
makes
she's
a
doing all this
journey.
hair changing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, and that's a brilliant thing about Clint Ramos's like costume design. It's just like the the costumes in itself like contributes to her journey, right? To like it informs like where she's at emotionally and mentally at
Yeah,
that particular scene. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of like that's why once we get down to the floor, the dance floor, like we can't even go back to our dressing rooms
mm-hmm.
because like we are down there like the entire 90 minutes because there's no time. There's really
Yeah,
no time for us
there's
to
no
go back to our dressing rooms.
time.
Like all the changes happen within like different little changing areas all around the space, and because of the immersive nature of it, you know, like that was the other thing that like our ushers and our wranglers had to work out as well, is to make sure that like we feel comfortable and we feel safe like wherever we're changing. So
Mm-hmm.
like to make sure that like audience members are nowhere near those areas,
Yeah.
you know, because I mean it is a show, but that would be a different show for if they see us like changing, you know.
Yeah, or just,
uh,
people leaving. It's like you don't want that happening.
right,
Try to keep
yes,
them,
yes,
again, keep
yeah,
them in the safe space
yeah,
so that
yeah,
it gets
yeah.
heard
And
and yeah, everyone's
right. And
safe.
like there are some people who like hate the idea of being told when and not to leave, but like, you know, we're doing it like just for their safety and for our safety. You know, it's an immersive show. Like things happen all around you. Like
Mhm.
it like an actor could be running down the what do you call those? The aisle. uh yes, in a traditional theater, that's what it's
Yeah,
called.
yeah.
um yeah, so just make sure that like the show will go on as planned, where actors can get from point A to point B at the given time that they could travel. um yeah, and like, you know, and that's like our wranglers are amazing.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we can do this show without them.
Oh, yeah.
They have
It'd be
been
quite
so
chaotic
great.
without them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like that was the other thing, that because I never really get to like watch them because like we're so busy running around. Like, but my friend was so fascinated by the Wranglers because it's so well choreographed
Mhm.
too. And they're not just like protecting us as well, like they're also protecting audience members,
Yeah,
you know,
from the platforms and from
right,
everything going
yeah,
on, yeah.
yeah. So and luckily like they look so cool.
You know, they
You
got their
know, so
outfits with the
people
cool
are yeah, people are
light
very fascinated by
lightsabers,
them.
yeah. And
Yeah.
for you doing rehearsal, like, because usually once a show's, going for a while, it's like once a week, but for you, you're doing it twice a week and doing
Hmm.
all the shows. I mean, you're not like an offstage cover. It's like you're in the show too
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
single day. So
Yeah.
preparing to play both Aquino and Marcos, like, how do you approach that? Like, because they are so drastically different in both political opinions and vocal style and like literally everything, outfits, just two contrasting characters. Like, what
Yeah.
is it like preparing to play both of them? Because you're kind of playing the one who wants to stand up for democracy and like really fight for the people, and then one who's kind of going like slowly going to corruption of
Yeah.
just that experience. And so what is it like preparing?
Honestly, like it's such an honor to get that opportunity to cover both roles because as you said, like they're so different, right?
Yes.
They're like the opposite of like spectrum. Um, but you know, but I think like the thing that's like that I'm finding as like kind of like a bridge between the two of them, like they have this like charm to them,
Mm,
right? Like the people gravitate towards them, the way they deliver things, the way they talk about things. There's that passion that comes through that like draws people to them, right? So at least that's the what what is
the
it called?
common kind of the
The
common.
Venn diagram, right? Like the
Oh yeah,
circular,
yeah,
like yeah, that
yeah.
overlaps between the two of them, right? Because I mean, after all, they're both politicians, and I mean, luckily, like they're real people.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's really helpful is like being able to just watch like clips of them, like when they deliver speeches, like
Mm-hmm.
or interviews, and that's the nice thing about like we were provided with a lot of like good materials from that era, that from that point in like point of time in the Philippines, because a lot of like the videos, because of the nature of changing the history, a lot of videos, a lot of like newspapers and books and magazines that were published at that time were destroyed. Luckily, we still had like access to some footage, like real footage. So it definitely helps with in terms of knowing who these people were and who they are as people and their mannerisms.
Mm-hmm.
So it has been a huge help. Um, in terms of embodying these two different things, like Alex kind of like told me to focus primarily on Marcos first, learn all the stuff, learn all the materials, get the essence of Marcos. And then I had my run through or like my put in rehearsal
Oh
2 weeks
yeah.
ago. So
Uh-huh.
that was like already with the costumes and all the technical elements, like what the sound, like everything, like how a show would be. So that was really nice because like as I mentioned, he has a lot of like quick changes that can because you can be in character. You can choose to be in character the whole time, but like you can't avoid the fact that like when you're doing a quick change, you kind of have to still be like, oh, this is me. I need to do this first,
Yeah,
and this,
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, so like the thing that's been very helpful is like I'm learning them separately, not all at once. So that way, like, I can really like draw the line between like who's
Yeah.
who and like who they are as or who they were as people and who they are as characters in our show.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's been and it also helps like to hear Jose and Conrad doing it every night. So then I get a little bit of a sense of like either technicalities, like technical stuff, like musical stuff, like it's nice to be able to pick up on those little things. And yeah, like it's been just like fun to learn
Mm-hmm.
these two different people and kind of like embody some of their stuff. And it's always been like as an actor, it's always kind of like always a dream to like play people who are so different from who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like as a person, I feel like I lean towards more Ninoy Aquino.
Mm-hmm.
So Marcos to me is a little bit it required a lot more work, like
Yeah.
to get that essence, right? Because he's very calculated, um, very charming, and has this like sex appeal to him that
Mm-hmm.
pulls people in. Um, that's completely different from just like having a natural kind of like confident self. So
Yeah.
that was really like fun trying to like find that within me. Because like I mean people have told me that I do kind of sort of look like Marcos. Especially like our hair designer
Ah.
actually like have me like he makes sure that like I do my part a little bit more closer to the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I was like the first time I did it, I was like, oh yeah, like there he is.
Like, okay, I see it now.
Yeah, because I mean, at least like Aquino, he has a very like his glasses are his defining thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But apparently I look like Marcos. So like there was a time when we were in rehearsals, like during the election scene, like when I'm holding one of the signs like vote for Marcos as an
Uh-huh.
ensemble member, and like one of our sings is like it's so wild because like that looks like you.
I know the picture you're holding up, you're like, that's him, but
Yeah.
that's me at the same time.
Yeah, I've actually been asked before, like if I have any relations with the Marcus, and I was like, no, unfortunately, no.
Yeah,
Uh,
this is just my face. This is how I am.
yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. And go having Here Lies Love be a story about the Marcoses, which is a tough topic for a lot of Filipino people to talk about, with either if they have direct family relation or if they just didn't know the history before. So, what do you hope that audience members, either Filipino or not, learn from the show Here Lies Love?
Well, definitely like for non-Filipinos, like I really hope that like they come see the show and like learn a little bit more about like the Filipino history and like about us, what our people went through. Because like I felt like I don't know if there's been any American who has not met a Filipino at all. Like we're like in hospitals,
I know.
know.
Always, always the
And
nurses.
like we're very involved in the community.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
pretty sure like every American has like no a Filipino here and there, you know. So it's nice that like if they go see the show, like that would be like an additional kind of thing that they would learn about like what the Filipino people endured and just the resilience of the Filipino people. And yeah, and then in terms of Filipinos coming to see it, I'm hoping that they because a lot of the Filipinos there are a lot of like Filipino families in America who actually came to the US during that time, right? So a lot of them don't really talk about it.
Hmm.
Um, one of our cast members, Melody, I believe she had it was a friend who came to see the show a couple of nights ago with her family, her parents, and her children.
Hmm.
Um, and she posted something about the fact that like her parents never really spoke about that time, because it's such like a dark moment in their family history, like that they were forced to flee the country and move to the States, right?
Yeah.
Leave everyone that they know, other loved ones behind. So a lot of them, most families who had to flee the Philippines at that time have chosen to kind of like bury that past and not talk about it. And there are a lot of people who come see the show. It kind of like starts the conversation again
Yeah.
about that time, because most Filipino parents don't really give details about what they've endured in their life, right? So, it's nice to have Filipinos come see the show and then like they start that conversation with their own families, um, and also teach their young ones, like the younger generation
Hmm.
about that particular part of history. Because even I was born there and I didn't move to the States until like I was mid-teens. I barely knew anything about that point in Filipino history.
Hmm.
Yes, it was before my time, but it's like I like the information I had about that time is very limited.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, like my mom didn't really have a lot of knowledge about it because she was not in Manila. She was in the province area at that time. And because of the geographical nature of the Philippines, people in different areas could have different experiences, so yeah, so like my family didn't really have any sort of like history about the martial law and stuff. My family's the island where they're from is a little bit more remote, so
Hmm.
they're kind of like separated from all the craziness that was happening in the country at that time. But it's good. It's so nice to see like and to hear about Filipino families coming to see it and they're saying that like it's starting up back up the conversation about it. Because it's like it's a very important moment in our history, a dark one, but like again, it's like it's certain parts of our history is being repeated.
Yeah.
So it's important to make sure that we talk about it and talk about what happened. So yeah, and that's the thing. That's one of the reasons why I'm so proud to be in the show, because not just because like I get to work with Filipinos, I get to work with some of my heroes, right? But it's also just like what the impact that we have, like this what this show has on people who come to see it. It has been like amazing.
Hmm. Yeah, I know for me, like this was back, when school was still going on and I was just reading. I remember going like on Wikipedia and like
Yeah,
reading about the Marcoses, about
yeah.
Ninoy, and about all of the things that pretty much get touched on in the show just because I was interested. I had never obviously seen a production before. I didn't know
Hmm.
anything because I don't think they really teach us anything about that in
Right.
America,
Yeah.
about the Filipino history, even though it is so intertwined with American history as
Right.
well. And so for me, getting to discover that about the Philippines, not knowing and knowing so many other Filipino people, I was like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, like I wondered, and I've met up with we've been talking to some of our Filipino friends about it, just like asking them what they know, if they do know, because there's such a difference too of like a lot of people in America don't know what happened, and even if
Right.
you're Filipino, maybe you just know Imelda for her shoes or know them for the glamour, or maybe don't quite know
Yeah.
that specific history. And even for me, being not Filipino, I'm Taiwanese, and so looking back at Taiwanese history and how
Hmm.
Taiwan also went through martial law, and how it's so important to talk about that and know, because
Yeah.
being Taiwanese, it's like that in itself is also not taught in American in
Yeah.
American education system. And so trying to learn about my own culture because other people get to learn about theirs through
Right.
Here Lies Love. It's just
Yeah.
it's great because everyone, yeah, I think a lot of people in the show Here Lies Love have been saying we need to know our history because you
Yes.
don't want to repeat it. And so having Here Lies Love on Broadway is so important because people are getting to know something about who they are inherently
Right.
and getting
But
to, change their mindset about it, and hopefully that kind of thing won't repeat itself again because we now know.
in terms of like the information though in the show, I do want to add that it is a 90-minute musical.
Yeah.
In terms of like, like it's highly stylized. The storytelling is stylized, but the production is making sure that like the facts that we're presenting are accurate, and we try to stay truthful and honest as possible. But again, I always just want to mention that like it is not a documentary, obviously, right? So like, because some people are saying that we're not mentioning enough of the wild things the Marcuses did.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a stylized art form, right?
Yeah.
It's a Broadway musical.
Yeah.
We can only fit so much within that 90 minutes without making it too gory or like alienating people or like making people shut down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're still trying to do a Broadway musical.
Yeah.
But what's important though is that like it's prompting people to want to know more,
Mm-hmm.
right? To like
Yeah, you have to
look up more information about it.
do
And
more after.
we're offering a lot of information even before the show even starts, right? Like it's in the lobby. Like we have a lot of like information out there as well. And even during the show, there's a lot of like information being presented. And but then again, it's 90 minutes. We can only do so much. The
Yeah.
rain was like a long time, right? And the
Yeah.
amount of things they did, it's probably like we can't even contain it in one
Right.
3-hour documentary, probably.
No, yeah, it
Um,
takes forever to do that.
but for what it's worth, like in this medium, like in a Broadway musical, we're presenting a lot of like information that would hopefully like prompt people to do their own research as well, or like search themselves like how they truly feel about the Marquesas. And so again, it's like it's a conversation starter.
Mhm. Yeah.
We're not here to force people to think a certain way. We're
Mhm.
presenting what happened based on the information that we have gathered, or like the production or like DB have gathered, and even our additional researchers. And we're making people figure out for themselves how they feel about this particular part of Filipino history.
Mhm.
And and I think that's the great thing about the best arts are the ones that like kind of like forces you to think and rethink your stance about something, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
instead of being told how to feel and think.
Yeah. No, I think that exactly what you said is you can't say everything in 90 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
could never say everything in
Yeah.
90 minutes. And so it is kind of the layout of just what happened and then use your own research afterwards.
Yes.
I know for me, knowing a lot of the history before going was very helpful for me just to kind of follow
Hmm.
the story and what happened
Yeah.
instead of going in blind. So I'm just hoping, people read in the playbills.
Yeah.
I think it's in the playbills too. Uh,
Yeah.
Go to lobby, just kind of figure it out for themselves and form their own opinion because Here Lies Love is not telling you exactly how to feel. They're just allowing you to
Right.
create your own opinion based on what they're presenting you.
But so far, one of the greatest things about being a part of the show too is like when you go outside after the show, right, at the stage door, we've met some people who were there at the EDSA revolution, the People Power Revolution, And we've also had the grandson of Ninoy Aquino's brother
Mm-hmm.
came to see the show as well, and he said that, like, we handled the material like like in a very nice way, and he liked the show.
Mm-hmm.
And all the people who were in the Philippines during this time, they were all just like so grateful that we get to tell this story,
Mm-hmm.
and like they get to like bring their kids and their grandkids to the show, and start that conversation about like what their families endured back
Yeah.
in the Philippines.
Yeah. And for you as an actor, like what does it feel like to finally be portraying your own ethnicity since, you have been in shows like I think you said Anything Goes or Anything and
Yes.
I and
Yeah,
that's
I've
what
done
what
through
it's
Modern Millie
like.
as well.
Yeah, it's like that's what it's been like for Asian people is you never get to play yourself. So what is
It has
it
been
like finally doing it?
yeah, it has been so, it feels so good to finally like present myself the way, like how I look, like how we sound, and it's been such an honor and such a privilege to be in this all Filipino cast.
Hmm.
So it's been amazing.
Yeah.
um like people don't quite realize how much like representation matters as well, like because like I feel like we rarely see our own people playing Filipinos or our stories being told. So to be in a production about our people, being ourselves, playing our people, it's just like I'm still like pinching myself,
Hmm.
So it's been amazing, and not just because of the show, like the cast itself is just like just to be in a cast where like we all, even though we're all coming from different places,
Hmm.
our Filipino-ness are all coming from different places, right? Because like I was born in the Philippines and then I moved to California. Some people were born here. Some people have never been to the Philippines. But even just with that, the way we kind of like got together and there's like this automatic bond between
Hmm.
us, which our culture kind of just like
Yeah.
cultivates and or kind of just like facilitates. Um, so it's been just like nice. It's nothing like any cast I've ever been with.
Hmm.
Um, so and to of course, like because we're doing a show that's kind of like wild and so different, that's so important that we all have this like bond and trust within each other, that like no matter what happens, we have each other's backs.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're like in platforms running around the theater, we do crazy fight scenes. So just to have that like sense of trust within each other has been so amazing.
Hmm. I
And it's
know.
actually like
Yeah.
it's the most supportive working environment I've ever
Yeah.
been in, and it's been nice. Yeah.
And I've heard of like I've heard the same thing about like the cast of K-pop, how,
Yeah,
all Asian people pretty much
yeah,
in space and
yeah,
same thing for Here Lies Love, where
yeah.
it's just you feel like you don't have to be the different one, or you don't have to be feeling like you're not
Right. Yeah,
belonging. You
because
instantly do just because of how you look and how you are. And
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
all of
Yeah,
you.
because sometimes like even though if you're the only like Asian person in the cast, like even though it's not intentional, sometimes you feel like you're being alienated, like some people are, yes, like it's a great like teaching experience, like to expose other people to your culture, but that shouldn't be our job,
Mm.
like we live in New York City and you have access to any culture
Yeah.
like here.
Hmm.
So for us to be still the one having to teach certain parts of our cultures and why certain things are okay and not okay, it's just kind of like, really, it's 2023, you know
Yeah. So you just
um
treat everyone
so
with
it's
respect.
right, yeah, so just nice to be like in a cast where everybody's in the same page, like, and yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, there's just something different there.
Yeah, and
In
talking
a positive, in a very positive
oh,
way.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. No, and
Yeah.
talking about like, you were an amazing barong on opening night, which
Oh yeah.
if people listening do not know, barong is like an embroidered long sleeve formal shirt for men in a national dress of the Philippines. And they're just so cool. I mean, I've always thought they were just so pretty, like when you look at them. And yours was amazing on opening night. It was
Thank
like
you. Thank
perfectly,
you.
something there haven't been that many barongs on Broadway
Yes.
before.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, can you tell the
And
story?
that,
Can you tell the story of having that made and what it
yeah,
was like to finally wear it on opening night?
that is actually like my second barong in my life.
Mm.
My first one was oh wait, no, no, not the second. I've had many ones, but like in terms of like wearing something in a very important point in my life, like I definitely wore a barong to my elementary school graduation.
Aw.
That was in the Philippines.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, like this is my Broadway debut, and I'm in a show telling our story, and in an all Filipino cast. I wanted to represent my culture. So I found out that I'm going to be in the show first week of March, and my mom happens to go to the Philippines in April. And I've been following an Instagram account of a barong designer in the Philippines. They're outside of Manila, like 3 hours outside of Manila. And I've always been so fascinated about his take on the barong. It's like he's modernized it, but at the same time still retaining all the traditional elements, right?
Mhm.
And I stumbled upon a rendering of the barong that I wore to opening night, and I have saved it in my Instagram. I think I saw it like last year,
Uh-huh.
and and I've saved it because like I figured like I definitely want to wear it to something special, right? And like if I could get it. Um, so then when the news came that like I was gonna be in this Broadway production, I was like, oh, I need something special, right? And I was like going through all my saved stuff because I tend to save like things that I see,
Yeah, yeah.
just to reference it. And then I saw that barong again, and I actually it was actually my she my second cousin, yeah, and a relative in the Philippines. She was the one who contacted the designer, and initially they said that they were not going to be able to make it. Um, like in time for my mom's flight back to the States. And my a relative just casually kind of just like, oh, it's gonna be worn like at an opening night in Broadway. I think it's the one that Leia Salonga is gonna be in. And I told her not to do it. But then like the designer responded immediately. They were like, "Oh, actually, you know what? Yeah, we can do it."
You're like, that's no,
Um,
not for her because name drop.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit of a name drop, but at the same time, it's like, like I'm glad my relative did because like I definitely loved like wearing that barong.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it was just like, and yeah, and just to be able to just wear a traditional garment, like Filipino garment made in the Philippines. It was like I was so proud. I was so
Yeah.
proud of it, and it photographed well, so it was pretty
Oh
cool.
yeah, yeah. No, I remember seeing you had like the
Yeah.
glasses, it's oh,
Yeah.
it's
But
awesome.
the cast like definitely brought it.
Oh my God.
Like
Yeah, the fashion, like the Filipino,
yeah,
fashion on the red
yeah.
carpet was amazing. I mean, I know I've always loved just seeing different the sleeves, like the
The
butterfly
sleeves, yeah, the butterfly
sleeves
sleeves, yeah.
and like
Yeah.
barongs, because
Yeah.
like I was a part of my friend's debut recently.
Oh really?
Birthday. Yeah, and so like all the, we were in the choir. I was a part of
Yeah.
it, like all the guys wearing barongs and like all the girls
That's amazing.
doing all that stuff. And so seeing it on Broadway, you're like, oh my gosh, finally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, it is
Yeah.
such just like a cool thing. Like it's gorgeous. Like
Yeah.
the butterfly
I
sleeve
mean,
barong is just so great. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it was just like so great to like represent our culture, like not just on stage, but also like on the red carpet. So it's like
Yeah.
all the Filipinos were definitely like brought their A game
Yeah.
opening night.
Yeah, no, and thinking about it with the reach that Here Lies Love is getting now on one of the biggest stages in the world, like
Hmm.
what do you hope like for Filipino or Asian young people, performers, like what is your advice to them um, if they want to start performing and want to be where you are one day?
Honestly, like just follow your heart. If you know that you are given a talent and and you enjoy like sharing that talent to people, just keep at it. You know, like there's gonna be a lot of like hurdles along the way, right? Like, and for us, it's we're still the the industry's changing, but that change is like there's still a lot that needs to happen, right? And hopefully for the younger performers, like they can see us like that they can see themselves that it's possible for them to make it here because that's what like I was lacking when I was like growing up. Like I didn't feel like I belonged in this industry because I rarely saw people who look like me. But then now we're changing the faces of Broadway, and yeah, I'm hoping that like if like the younger generation, if you have that skill, if you have the talent, and like you enjoy sharing that, like just keep doing it
Mm-hmm.
because you know you never know like sharing that to the world like it could change somebody's life and you
Mm-hmm.
might not know it, you know, like we're given certain talents not just for our own benefit, right? Like that's what how I always think about it, like
Yeah.
our talents is not for us, it's actually to service to give it as a service to people whatever they need at that particular point in time. If listening to your voice while you're singing like brings them some joy, like that is what you are here for, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and it's not easy like like pursuing a performing career is not easy, especially for people who look like us in America, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as long as you can, you know, keep that fire and that passion, like that fire just like flaming, and just keep at it, like, and at some point whatever you want will happen. Like look at me, it took me a while to get here, but here we are.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. No, definitely.
know.
It's like, it doesn't have to happen instantly. It sometimes takes
Right,
a long
yeah.
time of work and dedication, but
Yeah, yeah,
you can make it happen for yourself.
yeah. And that's the important thing to know too. Like everybody's journey is different.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people can get to Broadway at a very young age as a child, right? Some people can get to Broadway immediately after graduating from college. And some people don't get here until like, you know, later on in life. And but the most important thing is like you are where you are at that particular point in your life. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like no matter how much you want it, sometimes it doesn't happen, but that doesn't mean you're not good.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's just like the universe feels like you're not ready for that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and there's other things that you need to experience first before you get there, just to make you more like a whole person.
Yeah, you just want to have
um
like
yeah,
live life, be a human being on this planet.
right, yeah,
Have
yeah,
a full life full of things, and then other stuff will come eventually. You don't have
right, yeah.
to worry too
And
much.
just like like enjoy the journey, enjoy the journey there, you know.
Yeah.
And
Enjoy
like
the journey. Just had like hashtag or something.
yeah, yeah.
Make sure you're really taking it all in. So, I was wondering what currently is your favorite Filipino food? Because for me right now, it is the Filipino like grilled pork belly with like rice and
Yeah,
pancit. And like there's this one place in Bakersfield that makes it, and we always love to get it. So, for you, what is your favorite right now? Because I know it's so hard to choose.
definitely arroz caldo.
Oh my gosh. Oh
It's
yeah.
like it's like a comfort food. Like my mom always, like every time my mom visits me here in New York, or if I go visit them in, because my family is in Dallas now.
Mm.
Every time I go visit, like she always makes me
Oh.
arroz caldo. So yeah, so like when I feel like I have a cold coming on, like I like to either order arroz caldo or like have it made. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely arroz caldo right now.
No, that is definitely a really good one because one of like I consider her like my second mom. It's my tita Gigi.
Mhm.
And so she from like ever since we were little, she would always like make it for us whether we were sick or not. And I'm like that
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about
yeah.
with that one. It's just that comfort food that you always need to have. Um and lastly, like being in Here Lies Love and doing all this amazing work and doing so much for Filipino representation. What does representation just mean to you personally?
For me, it's like as I mentioned before, it's like when I was growing up, I was lacking that because like as Asian Americans or Asians, like we watch movies or even like plays and musicals, and it's easy for us to kind of like just attach ourselves to those stories, right? But there's still like that little part missing, like because our experiences are so different. Like,
Hmm.
yes, there are some like universal experiences that like we can all like kind of like be a part of, right? But to actually witness or watch a story that is 100% related to who you are as a person and your ethnic background, that creates like this other level of just like emotion like to it, right? So I think that for me, it's just like it's not just like seeing people who look like me, but it's also like seeing the stories that my people experienced. So,
Hmm.
and I think that's important, like the important thing about like Here Lies Love, because we're not just like an all Filipino cast telling this random story, right?
Yeah.
We are telling a story about what happened in our country, our home country, during that time. So yeah, so to me that I think Here Lies Love is a great embodiment of representation on stage.
Hmm. Yeah, I think especially with these stories that are so specific, I think in a
Yeah,
way it gives it a universal feel in
rest. Yeah,
too, where Filipino people can see Here Lies Love and directly identify,
yeah,
but
yeah.
then anyone else who witnesses it, who maybe isn't Filipino, can still take
Yeah.
something with them because
Yes,
of
yes,
that experience that is specific but universal. Like it's
yeah.
such an interesting concept to think about.
Right, yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's what like, Here Lies Love, the way it was created, like achieved like so successfully because
Mhm.
it's such a specific story, but it still can be relatable by anybody outside of the Filipino culture.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are some people who are kind of like up in arms about the fact that like, oh, it's our story, but it is written and being directed by white people. True, that's 100% true, but at the same time, like these people like surrendered the story and themselves to a lot of like other Filipinos, the cast, the some of the producers, and I gotta say, sometimes when we try to tell our own stories, there's always that fine line that sometimes we forget the artistry of it. Sometimes we get too precious about it that it tends to just like we get so zoned in about like telling, oh, this is our story. We got to tell it a certain way. But then to us, like, sure, within our culture, it would be relatable. But then outside of that culture, you're alienating anybody else outside of that culture. And in a sense, like Broadway shows, it still has to be commercially successful. And I think the beauty of Here Lies Love is just like whether you know about the Filipino story, this Filipino story, whether you're Filipino, whether you're not, or you just have like some sort of association with the like Filipino people, like you can come into this without any knowledge of Imelda or the Marcuses, and you'll get something out of it. And I think that's the thing that like Realize Love like was able to be it was able to be crafted in a certain way that's like that just works, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's that conversation of like who is making the art and who is, but I
Yeah.
think like what David has done is he's done his research, he's done all of
Right.
that work to really to give it
Yeah.
to the Filipino people to take it and then
Right.
make something beautiful out of it.
And he was like always like ready to listen
Yeah.
to us,
I
to
think
all
that's
the any Filipino involved in the show.
I
And
think the
which
message
is so
too.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there's so many
Yeah.
shows that maybe people didn't do correct research
Yes. Yeah.
or just isn't quite fully accurate. And so
Right.
I'm so glad that Filipino people have Here Lies Love because it is so just beautiful in the way that it
Yeah.
portrays and it's being done by the people for the people. And
Yes.
my hope is that just that can happen for everyone. You
Yes.
I know
Yes.
like Taiwanese
A-
aren't as many actors who are Taiwanese,
And I'm
but
hoping that, like it's all hopefully this will be a precursor to like this idea that like a story about colored people or like other ethnicities could be like commercially successful as
Oh
well.
yeah, Realize
Like
Love is doing
people,
great.
right? So yeah, that's a hope.
I know. I mean, I saw a musical earlier this year too that was fully Filipino cast called On This Side of the World
Oh
that was
yeah, I
really
know
big.
Paula, but
Yeah,
yeah, Paula
And so
wrote
I'm
that.
like,
Yes,
the fact
yes,
that there are two Filipino musicals in one
yes.
year, I'm like, that is
Oh,
mind.
and then I think Prison Dancer was being produced in Canada as well.
Oh, I get, oh
That was
God,
also created by Filipinos, inspired by the viral dance video that happened in a prison in the Philippines, I guess.
I don't know if I've.
It was at the Nymph, the New York Music Festival, several years ago,
I'll have
before
to
Here
look that
Lies
one
Love,
up.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah,
great that there's so many
yeah.
different.
And that was like what I was saying too. Like, hopefully like Here Lies Love will like open up a lot more avenues for Filipino stories to be told, other
Mhm.
Asian American stories or Asian stories to be
Yeah,
told,
yeah.
like, it doesn't have to be just white American centric stories that needs to be seen. So
Mhm. I know there's
yeah.
so many different avenues that we can go down now.
Yes.
And just in terms of representing everyone, finally, because when you include everyone, then, it becomes something for all people instead of just
Yeah.
one specific thing that has always been, the normal, I
Yeah.
guess.
Because
Um,
there are like millions and stories happening every day all over the world.
yeah,
It's just a
exactly.
matter of like giving that story a chance to be
Mhm.
presented to other people. So
Yeah. Again,
yeah.
I'm just so thrilled for you, the rest of the cast
Thank
who,
you.
are performing just so well every single night because I mean, you see the show. I saw it from both the mezzanine and the floor,
Yeah.
and it's just so much fun. You could sit anywhere, have a great time, and
Yes.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
leave knowing so much more about something that maybe you've never thought about before, and it's for everyone. And so yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much, Roy, for being here
Uh,
today. And
Thank you.
lastly, like, how can everyone help follow you on Instagram or social media, support you? Like, what is the best
Yeah, I'm
way for
like
everyone to do
my Instagram is definitely like the place where I post a lot of like public stuff. It's Roy Flores NYC.
that? Okay,
Yeah,
perfect. So everyone listening, make sure
yeah.
go follow Roy,
I
follow.
haven't done any YouTube videos in a while, but I have a lot of YouTube videos as well.
Yeah,
If you
maybe they
search for my
should
name.
do more of some Here Lies Love vlogs or something.
Yeah.
Just make the most of letting everyone, see how much fun it is over there. But
Yes.
yeah, thank you
Yeah.
so much, Roy, for being here today. Thank you to everyone listening. I'm so passionate about Here Lies Love. It is a beautiful story being told 8 times a week at the Broadway Theater. And so please make sure you go see it. And just thank you, Roy, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.